Lauren and welcome to another video from the Tiny Menagerie. Corydoras are an incredibly useful species to keep in your tank as they do a fine job of hunting out potholes or bits of forgotten food that have been lodged in the substrate. In this way they reduce the amount of waste that can build up in the tank, and this in turn keeps the water well balanced and as stable as possible for the rest of your inhabitants. Of all the cory species to choose from, and there are around 140 of them, the Pygmy cory is arguably the cutest with their little snub faces, stocky bodies and very gentle personalities. And they are certainly one of the most popular, if not necessarily the easiest to find of the cory species for sale. But what are they like to keep and what kind of setup do they need? Well, Pygmy cories hail from the Madeira Basin in Brazil, where they live in huge shoals that can number hundreds of individuals, and for this reason, as a minimum, you should really look at keeping at least 6 fish in your tank, rather than just having one lonely specimen, although more is always better so long as you have the space to accommodate them. And you will want to keep more if you can, as it's their interactions with each other that gives the species so much charm. Unlike other Corydoras who are strictly ground-dwelling, Pygmy cories actually really like exploring their tank, and they will travel across many levels from the substrate on the bottom all the way up the driftwood right up to the top. They will go anywhere they can in the tank in the search for food, and while they do spend a great deal of their time on the substrate, they also like to rest on plants or bits of driftwood, and seeing them perched up there is an adorable way of spotting them in your tank. And this tendency to use more of the tank does also mean you can get away with a slightly smaller tank space for them than you would with a regular cory. This explorative nature combined with their small size means that you can keep 6 pygmies in a tank as small as 60 by 30 centimeters, so long as you keep it as a temperature between 20 and 26 degrees C and a pH that stays around neutral. While Pygmy cories can breathe air, much like other Corydora species, and they will occasionally dart up to the water's surface to take a nice big gulp before going back down to the base, it doesn't mean that they don't need nice water quality in order to thrive. The water still needs to be highly oxygenated rather than stagnating. And so you're going to want to make sure you're only adding pygmies to a nice mature tank that's stopped fluctuating and has been running for at least a month. Like a lot of cories, pygmies are particularly prone to stress, which over time reduces their immune system and leaves them very susceptible to infections. And the 2 most common causes of stress in the aquarium are poor water conditions and too few tank mates. And as pygmies are not the easiest fish to source, nor the cheapest, it is well worth making sure you've got their conditions just right before you add them to your tank. When it comes to setting up the tank though and deciding on decorations, pygmies have a reputation for schooling and swimming in the middle of the tank, and while this is true, they certainly do that, it's not necessarily something you need to be too aware of when setting up for them. Unlike Danios, for example, who will happily swim about all day long and need plenty of space in order to thrive, pygmies certainly do swim in the middle, but not for very long, and so providing them with a tank that has plenty of places to hide, and a nice soft substrate made up of sand or pea gravel with plenty of surface for resting on is far more important than giving them open space. In fact, if your pygmies are shoaling a lot, then it is a pretty good sign there is something in the tank they do not like. They are rather sensitive little fish, and they shoal together when they're stressed, such as after a large water change for example, or if you've changed something in there. Then they will come together and shoal for a while they travel to somewhere new. Obviously, in the tank they can't actually go anywhere, but they still have the instinct to attempt to do so. So during normal everyday, pygmies will spend most of their time close to each other, but they're not shoaling together all the time. Each fish will be going about its own individual business, living a surprisingly solitary existence and only really coming together for the occasional pygmy meetup. And these meetups are an important part of pygmy life. This diminutive little fish are about as harmless as you are ever going to find, and other tank mates need to be as gentle as they are. Other cory species are perfect companions, as are smaller community schooling fish such as tetras or rasboras. Very boisterous tank mates might not actually damage the pygmies, such as tiger barbs, but they are certainly going to outcompete them for food, and so you're going to need to watch your little bottom dwellers just to make sure that they're getting plenty to eat. Luckily, pygmies are not fussy at all about what they will eat. In fact, they are proper little pigs, happily snuffling away in the substrate all day long, looking for anything that's even remotely edible. They will happily take any of the pre-prepared foods so long as it'll fit in their mouths, from frozen bloodworms to flakes to bites to little pellets. They also like the smaller live feeds such as white worms, and they seem to really relish the eggs of other fish. They will eat pretty much anything they can catch, which to be honest isn't much, as they don't have a hunting instinct and they rely on blundering into food, so they are also perfectly safe to keep with shrimp, although the odd shrimplet might become a meal if it doesn't swim away fast enough. Breeding pygmy cories is much like any other cory species, and the most challenging aspect of doing so is waiting for the fish to mature, as females can wait for a whole year before they even start to produce eggs. When they do though, they will deposit those eggs on the glass or on broadleaf plants, and if you're keeping them in a species-only tank, then you can actually leave the adult pygmies in the same tank as the eggs, as they show no interest at all in predating their own offspring. In the community tank though, those tasty little eggs will be snapped up by any of the other fish species if they find them before you do. So it is well worth transferring any eggs that you find to a grow-out tank so that you can raise the fry. Overall though, pygmies are a delightful addition to the community tank. They are always busy, always snuffling with that lovely cute little snub face that they've got, and they're especially good if you're looking for either that cute factor or a bottom dweller that's going to stay nice and small if you don't have a huge tank for keeping lots of bigger cories in. They are very hardy once they get established, and they are fairly easy to breed so long as you have some patience. But I hope you've enjoyed this little video all about Pygmy Corydoras. Happy fish keeping everyone, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye!